So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Nia. Great to have you on the show again.
I'm so happy to be back with you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. From the last time we spoke, you talked about your book, A Story Bigger Than the Ocean.
That was it. That was Flares Up. Yeah, the subtitle of that. So that's been what, at least 2 years now.
So, what projects have you been working on, and what is new? What have you been published? Tell us about what's going on with you right now.
Sure. Well, since the last time we talked, after Flares Up came out, I then had the opportunity for my memoir, Following Sunshine, to be brought out. And that was brought out by a US based publisher in Texas called Black Rose Writing. And that basically tells the story of my growing up in Ireland and, various different parts of what inspired me to go travel around the world and be a volunteer traveler. And also the year I took out to volunteer travel in one direction around the world. And finally, I get on a sailboat to do 1 month volunteer project. And I ended up living on the boat for 6 years and marrying the captain. So that was when Following Sunshine came out. And then during about back in 2020, actually, during the lockdown period, I was doing some writing courses with Curtis Brown Creative in the UK, basically online. And over the time that summer, I had been working with various different writers, and our job was to critique each other's writing. And what I noticed was people who didn't know each other, they were either very full of praise, like, oh, it's wonderful, or a little bit harsh in their criticism rather than critiquing. And so I thought, it was the time when Zoom really blossomed for everybody. We all understood what the Zoom thing could do. And I said, okay, why don't I run some meetings once a week during the course so that we could get to know each other? And then maybe we would have a bit better of a vested interest in each other's success and really ask the other person what would be helpful for you. And so I was running those courses. And then at the end of that final course, it was October of 2020, I recognized that there was 9 of us all together that were really committed to being traditionally published. So I thought I didn't want to let that energy drop, right? So I ended up forming this international writers group and inviting the 9 of us to keep going. And once a month, I've been running Zoom meetings ever since. And in 2023, we came up with the idea of everybody meeting together in person when it was free to travel again. Because we had one person in Japan at the time, one in Australia, one in Ireland, one in America, and some in England. And we all agreed to meet in England in 2023. And the next stage, Flares Up had already come out. One of the other authors, Ben Tufnell, his book, The North Shore, was just being released. And I thought, what can we do that would A, celebrate everybody's writing together as a group, and B, what would help everybody else get that one next step to being traditionally published? And that's when we came up with the idea of writing an anthology together. And that's the one called Stories of Place, which just came out in 2025.
So, with you having your story in this book, how long is the book? And are you sharing your story from the beginning up till now, or is it like a certain section of your story, your life
Well,
story in this book?
my life story is actually in the other book, Following Sunshine. That's well, I won't say entire life story, but that's my memoir. But in this book, Stories of Place, the 9 of us have actually contributed 2 stories each, and they're short stories and they are fictional. So it's all made up. But the interesting thing was, we all have very, very different writing styles and we write in totally different genres. So it was like, how are we going to make that work in one book? And it was Emil Casson, one of the writers, who came up with the idea of using the What Three Words app as a theme for the book, right? Now, I hadn't heard of What Three Words at the time. It originated in England. And there was a guy called Chris Sheldrick who was a concert promoter and he was having difficulties getting his bands to the absolute correct destination for whatever gig it was. Like you can imagine a big stadium or something like that, you'd end up at the wrong door, or he started using GPS coordinates and then they would transpose numbers. And I think eventually what happened was one band ended up going to the wrong wedding. And he thought, we've got to do something to make this work. So himself and his friend from high school, who was a tech guy called Mohan, they sat together and they developed this algorithm which mapped out the entire planet in 57 trillion squares of 3 by 3 meter squares, which in the States terms, it's actually 10 by 10 foot, right? And he gave each one of them a unique 3 word address. So, for instance, right now I could be sitting in the address of chair, lamp, bookcase, right? And you could be, I mean, even if you were next door to me, you could be in a different address with a different 3 words. And they developed this, and now some of the emergency services, like I know the LA Fire Department uses it. They've rescued people like lost off the hiking trails with it and then get to them sooner. It's extraordinary, and it's really quite a lot now in pop culture. So as she explained this to me, I was listening to it and we were all thinking this would be a great idea. So we decided that that was the theme for the book. And the subtitle is Zinc Level Blindfold. So the title is Stories of Place, and the subtitle is Zinc Level Blindfold. And that is the exact same square we were all sitting at together in England when we came up with the idea. And then we take it one step further, and each story has a 3 word address. And so the reader can either look it up ahead of time on the app, what 3 words, or they can kind of read the story and glean from the story where it might be set in the world. So it's been a lot of fun. And it's one of the things now we're starting to talk about it more on the cruise ships. Myself and Gary do give talks on cruise ships. And just this last one in Japan, we were telling people about this app. And what was fantastic was when we would dock in port, then if we were a long way from the downtown area, there would be a shuttle bus, and we would get off the shuttle bus and then wander off and like look around. Well, where did the shuttle bus? This is in Japan, and all the languages in Japanese. Like where was that shuttle bus? So what we started to do was, as soon as we got off the bus, we would clock what was the 3 word address of where we were. And the beauty of the app is you can actually use it offline. So you don't have to have Wi-Fi. And you can wander off, and then you would remember the address, and you would then put in those 3 words and then hit navigate to it. And it would bring you right there, like a Google map.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. So I think ours is one of the first books that has embraced the whole thing. I've seen it used in a couple of different TV shows and, a little bit of literature just I mentioned, but this is like the entire book is based on the theme of that app.
Wow, that is nice. So you said that you do have speaking engagements. Is it
hmm
different countries, or is it a cruise that you kind of take and you go in different places and talk? What is it all about? Like,
Right. So about 2 years ago, my husband and I, Gary, were on a cruise in Italy. And that's when we were with Celebrity Cruises, and we learned that they do bring guest speakers on board. So we applied and we were auditioning back in Florida. And what we do is we go on the ships, and then during the sea days, the activities manager, there's a whole load of activities for people to do. And one of them on Celebrity Cruises is called the Beyond the Podium Enrichment Series. And so it could be a speaker on destinations like tomorrow we're going to be in St. Martin, and here's what you might see, and here's the history of the country and all that good stuff, right? And then there's other people who might give talks about something really interesting. We've had astronomers on there. We'll talk about the night sky. We've had people on who are work in the aviation business who would talk about, I know one guy in particular was talking about investigating air accidents and very interesting information about that. And so Gary and I are on there and we talk about my books and the stories behind them. We also do another talk about Ireland because I'm Irish, and it's like Ireland through the eyes of an Irish woman with an American husband. So it kind of gives a flavor of that as well. We're doing one on apps this time. So basically, when they contract us to go on the ship, we go to the ship and then we're on board during the cruises. So this last month we were on in Japan, and it was Japan and South Korea. We're back now for a few weeks, and then we're heading to the Mediterranean next, and we'll be doing all through the Mediterranean. And then the final one for the year for us will be coming from the UK on the transatlantic, coming back to Florida, which has a lot more sea days, like about 8 or 9 sea days, which, of course, having lived on a sailboat for 6 years, we absolutely love it, you know. And we can offer more workshops like writing workshops and things like that on the ship. So it's a lovely way to meet with guests and to share our talks, and it's very enjoyable.
Wow, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So you also bring your books on too, like you also do like do your book like tell people about your books, like book signing and stuff like that. Do you do that on a cruise?
Sure, yeah. So what we do is, like, for instance, Flares Up, we have the whole backstory of behind the scenes of how that book came about and how we met the two lads when we were in Antigua on the sailboat. And we share videos and images from that. And then after each presentation, the cruise ship itself in the big gift shop upstairs, they actually sell the books for us. And then we do book signings for guests and stuff like that. Yeah.
Great. So tell the listeners about where they can get in contact with you. Where can they find your books if they're not on the cruise ship?
Yeah, right. Oh, so the best way to reach me is through my website, which is called thewriteronthewater.com. So it's www.thewriteronthewater.com. And on there, there's plenty of pages where you can get all the links to my social media, which is, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all that good stuff. And also, we can get a direct link to all the books, but the books are available worldwide on all the Amazon outlets. So there's for all of them, in fact, all three of them now have the print book, the Kindle version, and also an audiobook. The Flares Up and the Following Sunshine audiobook, I narrate them. In Flares Up, the award-winning actor Jeremy Irons actually wrote the foreword, so he narrates that part of it, of his foreword. And then we have this wonderful voice actor out of the UK called Simon Allison. He narrates Stories of Place, and he does an amazing job with all the different stories and the different accents from all around the world, because there's stories set in Australia, in the Middle East, in Japan, in Ireland. It's all over. So he does a wonderful job on that. So all three of those you can get through Amazon, and either through my website or through Amazon itself.
Okay, so what are your social media and platforms? Do you have social media
I'm
platforms?
on quite a few of them, actually. I've got Instagram, Facebook, both personal, obviously, and the business page. And the business page is Niamh McAnally, the writer on the water. LinkedIn, TikTok, and Threads. I think I think that's all of them. It's enough, there's so many now, it's kind of hard to keep up. And so, we try and do, like, we'll do little reels from the ships, and we've just put up some of, going around Japan, and mostly on travel information and stuff like that. So we'll do reels, and we'll do little articles. And then what we do also, just to keep everybody in touch, is once a month, I think it's on the second Saturday of every month, we bring out a newsletter, which is Reflections from the Writer on the Water. And in that, we have an additional separate section for anybody who wants to learn how to write or wants to be encouraged in their writing. We bring out writing tips every month, so people can get that as well.
Sounds great. So, Niamh, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to do what you're doing right now? What advice would you give to them?
You mean in terms of being a writer?
Yeah, in terms of being a writer, going on the cruise ship and giving speeches about their books and just giving them this advice that they can stay focused, and if they're dreaming about that they can pursue their dreams.
Sure, absolutely. And you and I both know manifestation is everything. Your mindset, what you put in your mind, what you think about on a constant basis, that really does pay off. In terms of writing, my thing I do in workshops with people that want to write is ask them three questions. And I think every writer should ask themselves these three questions. One, what is it you want to write? Two, why do you want to write it? And number three is, whom do you want to have read it? And I think you need the answer to all those three questions. The what is quite easy. That comes quite easy to most people. It's the story you've been thinking about, whether it's your own or whether it's pure fiction. It's a story you want to tell. But the main thing you've got to ask yourself is, why do you want to write it? Because if you're not clear on that, you're going to lose enthusiasm when the going gets tough. Because writing a book, for instance, takes, the best part of a year. It's a long, long process. So if you're not sure and you get bored halfway through and you think, oh, I'll start something else. Well, guess what? Even if you finish that book, if you're bored, you know the reader is seriously going to be bored. So you got to be very clear on your why. And then on the whom, it depends, particularly if you're writing nonfiction, like creative nonfiction, like your memoir. And most memoirs that are good read like a novel. So you feel like you're getting in with the characters and everything else. In that, you have to be very clear. Is this a book you just want to like document a family history to pass on to the future generations, and it's a limited audience? If that's the case, you probably have a wider net to put more stuff into it. If it's a book that you want to, get traditionally published out into the world, anybody anywhere can read it, then you've got to ask yourself, how much of myself will be in it? How much is going to be helpful to somebody else? Like, for instance, if I've got an issue with A, let's say, and here's how I overcame it, is that helpful to another person reading it? Can they relate to it? If it's something that's very personal, very private in your own life, you don't have to put that in if you don't want the whole world to know it, and especially nowadays in social media and when you're promoting books and you're doing interviews, etc. Is that something you want to be asked about? No. So don't include it, right? So that's one of the criteria there. So whom you want to have read it is crucial too. Having said that, what I would say is at the very beginning, when you're writing, say, the first draft, don't worry about any of that. Just know your why, because you got to get everything down on the page. And once you do that, you can fine tune it afterwards. Because if you're writing with trying to get it the very perfect it can be on the first thing, you'll have this critic on your shoulder the whole time and you'll get stunted. You just got to free flow and just write it in the first draft. And you never show anybody your first draft, not a family member, not a friend, nobody. And then you put it away for 2 weeks, or that's the minimum. Put it away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or whatever, and don't read it. And then read it straight through without a pencil in your hand. Just read it straight through to kind of get a feel for it. And then you can start taking bits out or putting bits in or whatever you need to do on the edit, right? And then once you go down the whole publishing road, you've got options. You can, in this day and age, you can self-publish. You can go to Amazon directly and you can self-publish your book. What I would say though is don't go directly, like once you've finished and typed the word "the end," don't just stick it up on Amazon right away. Make sure you have a professional editor read it and edit it for you, because your credibility will be gone in the first 2 or 3 pages if you have spelling mistakes, if the grammar's all over the place, or if it's just not flowing well. I would definitely have somebody else. I mean, I don't edit my own. I mean, I edit my own work initially, but I always have an editor, have the final say, if you like. And so you've got that route. You can go down as a self-published route. Or if you want to be traditionally published by a traditional publishing house, most of the big ones now require that you have an agent, and the agent then shops the books directly to the publishers. That is a long road also, finding the correct agent for you and getting taken on. And I wouldn't despair. I would say send out your manuscript, 3 or 4 different agents at a time. Do your homework, research what they're looking for. If your books fit somewhere close to something else they've had that they've published, but not quite the same, that might be a hook for them. However, again, do your research. Don't suggest, oh, my book is like Solo on Her Own Adventure, or which is one of my favorite books, by the way, or it's The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. Those are all very successful books. But if it's like the Lesser Spotted Pink Plate Helminte's book and it tanked and nobody bought it, well, then don't use that as a comparison, right? And so work with that. Once you get an agent, that's not the end. That's just the beginning. They then have to go out and do their work and shop around the publishers and try and sell the book to a publisher, right? And then you've got a middle way of doing it. There are smaller presses and publishers that will take an unsolicited manuscript directly, so you can pitch them directly. And that what's nice about some of the smaller ones is they're quite nimble. They can move quite quickly, and they seem to me to have their finger on the pulse of the digital world in terms of book publishing. They understand how the algorithms work, what the keywords, the search words should be, and they play around with it. Nothing is set in stone. So that's another option. You can go directly to them. But no matter whether you go to an agent or a publisher directly, your, let's put it, your query letter or your pitch needs to have three elements in it. Number one would be some kind of hook. Why this book? What's this story? And then the next part is like a little synopsis of what the book is about, not even a paragraph maybe. And then the third part is why you? Why are you the person to tell this story? What's your experience? And it doesn't matter if you don't have any experience in publishing already, but bring your other experience of why you're the expert to tell this story. So in that letter, you want three things. You want what we call the hook, the book, and the cook, right? So what's the interesting thing? What's it about? And why are you the person to tell the story? And then you get that one day eventually. You don't give up. You keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, because you will get one rejection letter after another. And it doesn't necessarily reflect your writing. It can be, it's not the right time for us. We're only publishing this amount of books, or we did one way too similar very recently. There's a conflict. It doesn't it's not really a rejection of you as a writer. It's just not right time.
Mhm. Wow, what great advice.
Oh, I hope it's helpful.
So Niamh, thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast. It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. Love chatting with you always.